Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 192.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores. A few weeks ago, I kept seeing some excellent posts on Twitter from a putting instructor and good friend, John Hobbins. He has some very useful information to share with you to help you improve your putting distance and speed control, and also some great insights on, well, again, here are those words, my words, aggregation of marginal gains. Well, marginal gains can be huge gains if you play golf at a high level. At any level that you play golf, enjoy this interesting interview with John Hobbins, Director of Instruction at the Greenside Golf Academy in New York City, New York.
Taking your game to new heights. www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 192 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. And welcome. You know, as I think about this, John, too, I miss getting to see you at the PGA show. That's the one time of the year we usually connect, but maybe next year. But good friend John Hobbins, Director of Instruction at the Greenside Golf Academy in New York, New York. John is a Class A PGA teaching professional. He loves teaching putting. He's a level 3 Aim Point certified instructor and also has been honored as one of the Golf Digest best teachers in New York in 2022-2023. So today we're going to, the impetus for this is John has done a lot of posts lately on Twitter about putting distance and speed control, and I thought we could all pick his brain a little bit about some of the things that he typically does and how he helps golfers improve that. So, John, thanks for doing this today.
My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Well, share a little bit about your personal story related to being in the golf business, but maybe also specifically about your passion for helping golfers improve their putting performance.
Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and as such, I did a lot of caddying when I was very young, in my junior high school years, and then all throughout college. And what I found through those years is that the better my players perform, the better the gratuities were. And so at a very young age, I started playing and I got into reading greens. And back then, there wasn't really a process of reading greens other than using your eyes, right? And so I'd spend a lot of time on the practice putting green. And, back then we had what we called Caddy Mondays, where the golf course was typically closed. And so the caddies could come out and play for a half a day, like from 7 a.m. until about 1 p.m. And then I grew to be one of the better caddies, and so the caddy master always invited me to play with him in the afternoon. So I get to play 36 to 45 holes a day, and so I used to pick his brain and everything about putting and green reading and so forth. And so I had early on in my caddy career, if you will, I realized that putting created a performance enhancing opportunity, and for me it was better tips. And so I kind of got into putting because I was a good green reader, given what I had to read with, and I could help my players, with better reads, and they putted better. And so I started to realize that there's more to putting than stroke, even at a very young age.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into putting. And then when I turned professional, I had always had this affinity for putting because throughout the years, I don't think that a lot of golf professionals enjoy teaching putting. I don't think they enjoy teaching green reading. And as a result, I don't think we're as good as we should be as professionals with putting and with green reading. It's kind of a niche market, if you will.
Yeah, I love teaching putting too because it's just totally fun. Now, I can't remember if I told you I'm from McKees Rocks, right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of my summers in college, I'd work during the week, summer jobs to help pay for my tuition and books and food and clothing and so forth. And so I'd caddy weekends in college, but during the week I worked at the Pepsi-Cola plant under the bridge in McKees Rocks.
My gosh, that's right. My brother worked there, but I also I caddied at Upper St. Clair at St. Clair Country Club. And I got a Western Pennsylvania Golf Association caddy scholarship to Carnegie Mellon, which was like, the break of a lifetime. It was definitely everything that set my life up, for getting to do lots of things. I can
believe that.
Yeah, it was very amazing. So, well, what are some of the most important things that golfers don't understand about the value of creating great distance and speed control in their putting?
I don't think they have any concept of what creates distance the ball rolls. What is it? Why does the ball roll a certain distance? What are the resources to create ball roll distance control? And that's what I because I give a lot of aim point clinics. I probably do this year I'll probably do 60 clinics. Anywhere, up to 8 per clinic. So I'll see 400 or 500 golfers plus private lessons, individual lessons with putting and green reading. And for the most part, every time I give a clinic, very few people understand why the ball rolls, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet. So I don't think they understand how the putter functions to create their distance. Well, I just don't think they're knowledgeable.
Go into that a little bit. What are some of the things that they don't understand about how the ball rolls?
Well, two things that I always look at when I'm giving a putting lesson or like when I'm doing my aim point green reading and people are having a hard time with distance control is, and I will film this a lot of times, even in the clinic, I'll pull them aside and film them. But I always look at the distance the stroke is traveling, away from the ball, back to the ball, and then through stroke. And inevitably what I see is golf putting strokes that have shorter backswings and longer through swings.
Yeah.
All right. That's when you just lick your lips because this is going to be like the easiest money I've ever made giving a golf lesson. And so I like to flip that. I like backswings that are longer, through swings that are shorter. Yeah. And then the other thing I look at is the speed that the putter is traveling. Because if you and I took the same length backstroke and the same length through stroke with the same ball position, and let's say your timing of your putt was 0.6 back, 0.3 through, and mine was 0.8 back and 0.25 through, well, would have different length rolls, wouldn't we? Yeah. Or if mine went 0.5 through or back and 0.25 through, again, would have a different roll. So I see slow backstrokes. People try to be too careful, and then they have to rush the through stroke. So that's at 0.253, which is doesn't work because it's not athletic and it's just too much time going on. Then the flip side of it is I see strokes that are very short and fast. So I like a longer backstroke, a shorter through stroke, and then I want to put it in a timing variable that you can manage.
And it's interesting too, as much as people watch the guys on the tour, I think, if they would watch the men and maybe particularly the women, they will see that kind of stroke. They will very infrequently see strokes that are real short and really long follow through. That they might see it on some huge long putts, but that's a little bit different kind of a putt when you're talking 60, 80 feet putts. They might give a little more oomph, and it's a little harder to control speed.
Yeah, and the problem with watching golf on TV is unless you're filming it and can rewind it and slow it down, you really can't see length of stroke back and through. I know even when, it's like I do a lot of lessons with putting and I'm always watching it, but just to show the person, I always film it, because then I can frame advance it as I want to. But it's difficult on TV. But I think the other thing you need to do is, if you're serious about it, is like, who are the best putters on tour, in the last year, in the last 5 years, the last 10 years, and then go look at their strokes. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube now, like, there's, a zillion pieces of information on the internet. And I think if you go find the best putters over a period of time, you're going to see some continuity to what they're doing and how they go about doing it.
Now, when we started out, we talked a little bit about, how important aim point is, what you're doing in helping golfers. But there's also a big connection between aim point and distance control and speed control. And, I also view speed control a little different sometimes than distance control when golfers get into like sort of 15 feet. Some of the guys I work with the junior college that we have, they just struggle with buying into the value of not, trying to ram putts from 10 and 15 feet to make them, and then they get a frustrating putt coming back, and then that frustrates the next thing. But there's a real big combination between getting the read right and getting the speed right?
I believe so. Some instructors like to pick speed and then read. I'm the opposite. I like read and then speed. I figure out how much break I need to play, and then I can determine how the speed I'm going to apply to that particular read. So that's my preference. I always pick my read. Like I had a group the other day up at a private club in Greenwich, Sunday afternoon, and we were overlooking the 18th green. And these are, without a doubt, the biggest greens in the Northeast, maybe the biggest greens in America. It's an old golf course. It's, over about 100 years old. All right. And they're just humongous greens. Like they could cut their greens in half and play 36. It's just that they're that big. So
yeah.
so you get, and being an older style golf course, what you get is you get a lot of swinging putts on big greens with a lot of slope. So we went out, we dropped down below the putting green onto the 18th green because it was late in the afternoon. No one was coming around 18. And we picked like a 40-foot putt, which had no less than, I would say, 15 feet of break.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Right to left, a big swinger. So we read the putt. We went out and we put a marker out at the aim point, which was about 15 feet to the right of the hole. These were all right-handed players, so it was a right to left swinging putt across and down a slope. And to a person, they said, there's no way that that's a good read. And I said, really? I said, well, why don't we find out just how good it isn't? And so then I had each of them hit that putt at the 15-foot break mark. And to a person, they all ended up below the hole.
Because they still didn't trust that was really the break.
Well, no. I mean, that's where, I'm talking a 40-foot putt. I ended up below the hole a few feet. That's a great putt, right? They were all hitting really good putts. They just couldn't believe it because they'd hit the putt and it said, see? And then the ball would start, slowing down and feeling the slope, right? And the more it did it, the more it would tumble. And it just kind of like falling off a hillside.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way the ball could stay up on that steep a slope. It was just going to fall down the hill. And to a person, they said, I would have played no more than 4 or 5 feet of break on this putt, in which case they would have probably putted off the green low side.
Yeah.
Which again is, if you're going to make an error in putting, overread, not underread the putt.
And I like the people that I see, particularly with, some of the kids that I work with, the junior college kids, is to just hit a putt and see where it ends up and realize whether you're under reading and over reading just by where the ball ends up.
Definitely.
I mean, it's
if they're starting the ball on the line with a good speed, I would 100% concur.
Yeah.
The problem with people think you can take the slope out of a green, which you can with a bulldozer or a shovel.
Yeah, right.
And I've had this experience with tour players and caddies that I've worked with, where this particular tour player likes to hit it 5-6 feet by taking the break out. He says, I like to take the break out of a putt. And so I'm watching him do this, and he's not a very good putter. And I said to him, what is it about the game that's so easy for you that on a Sunday afternoon you enjoy making 6 and 7 footers for par on the back nine to make your money? I said, why would you want to do that? Is the game too easy? And he's just looking at me, and he said, I take the break out of it. I said, you can't take the break out of it. I said, the ball's going to break at some point. It might be 6 or 7 feet past a hole when your putt slows down. I said, but you can't be putting at 7 feet on the back nine all afternoon for pars. I said, that's not how you're going to make your money.
Yeah.
And even at the tour level, they try to do it. But again, he's he's annually between 150 and 180 on the putting stats.
Do you think some of that too, and the questions I sent to you, there's one later related to this, is about really spending enough time to get good at controlling distance and speed? Because it's a lot of work. Well,
yeah, but so's anything else that you do at your job, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Right. And if I'm a tour player, I do this every year, right? I take a tour player who finishes in the top 25, the top 50, the top 75, top 100, top 125, and on, to 200. And I go through and I make them one putt better per tournament.
Yeah.
So if they missed a cut by one, now they make the cut. If they finished in 10th place, now they finished in 9th place, right? I make them one putt better per tournament. And money-wise, that'll range anywhere from, at the low level, $500,000-$600,000 a year, to the high level, close to $2 million a year. And then once you get up that high, you're talking about a lot of FedEx Cup points as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Getting to the, maybe sometimes even getting to the top 30 and all the perks that's unbelievable, right?
And that's got to be worth a couple $1 million, right? In the top 30. Because one, you look at tour earnings, and that's one gambit. But if you end up in a tie and losing a playoff, you're going to probably lose $600,000 to $800,000, depending on where you're playing, from first place to second place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so that playoff wouldn't have happened with one more putt. You would have won, which gets you in Tournament of Champions. And then as far as endorsements, I'm sure all these tour players have, if they finish, in the top 30, that's probably a bonus pool. If they win an event, that's probably a bonus pool. If they're, top 50 worldwide, that's probably a bonus. So they have all these perks tied into there. So, my couple $100,000 to $2 million is nothing compared to probably what's on the flip side of the business side of endorsements.
Yeah. Now, so you see somebody new, okay, and maybe, I don't know if whoever it was that you had today was new, that you had a lesson, but are there any specific things you normally do with them related to putting and distance control, or any specific tests or things you recommend people do if they're just trying to kind of start out and see where they are?
What I would do, if I'm outdoors on a putting green, is I would make a circle of balls at 4 feet around the hole.
Yeah. So
I have uphill, downhill, side hill, right to left to right, in all 4 directions, and then somewhere below the hole and somewhere above the hole is one straight putt. Might be a very short distance where the ball location is, but it rolls straight up what we would call an aim point. We call it a zero line. In skiing, snow skiing, they call it a fall line, where it's straight down the hill, right?
Yeah.
or straight up the hill. So we have our follow line, what we call a zero line, meaning zero break, straight aim to the hole. And so you have one straight putt above and below, and then you have degrees of right to left, left to right, above and below. And so I will make that circle at 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, and just see how they're rolling. Because one of those putts, and typically for a right-hander, it might be the uphill right to left, they putt extremely well. One of them they putt very poorly, and then the other putts are somewhere in between. So I want to see where their strengths and weaknesses are. I want to see how they read greens. Are they missing putts because of speed control? Are they missing putts because of read? Are they missing putts because of combination of read and speed control? Or is it a stroke issue? What I find is most strokes are better than the results because the speed control is off and the read is typically off. I don't understand how two people can look at the same putt and come up with the exact amount of break. So one of the things I do in my clinics is I will take a putt with 4 or 5 feet of break. I will give everybody a tee. They got to go up and place it to one side of the hole or the other with the amount of break that they would play on that particular putt. And inevitably, they come up anywhere from a foot to 2 feet under my read with using my aim point skills.
Yeah. By the way, before we got on, you've got something you sell on your website that's pulling a string from a little tube.
No, the visual aligner.
I like that. I bought it this morning before.
I saw that.
Before that. How about that? So I made a contribution, but
now you're a client.
Yeah, I'm a client. But that was just a very easy way to sort of get people to take a lot of different putts and do reads and then see where they are, and in terms of hitting them different speeds too with that line, right?
Well, not only that, but it's just like, how good is your read? And I don't care that you don't have my process, right? The aim point process. That's up to you. But I want you to have some kind of process. And in that, is that process correct? Do you read it well with your eyes? Are you playing enough break? And if not, then you better change your process, because I don't care how well you stroke it or how well your distance control is. If you're aimed 6 inches right or left of the intended line that would hold the putt, then you really got to get lucky with your speed, right? So I can hit the same putt with 3 feet of break. I can hit it with 4 feet of break and make it by controlling speed.
Yeah,
I can take speed away, or I can add speed, to a certain degree, right? Now I'm a die at the hole kind of putter, because I like to have the greatest, what I call capture speed, and that's the hole capturing the ball. So the slower the ball's going as it goes over the lip of the cup, the better chance of it falling in versus spinning out. So yeah. I like I seldom hit the back of the cup. That's not my forte, right? I like to drop it over the front edge, where it dives toward the front edge to middle. Sometimes if I'm nervous on an uphill putt 3, 4, 5 feet, I might think back of the cup, because I want to take a little break out, or I'm just I'm playing nervous.
Yeah.
But my idea is to drop it over the front edge, and I can add some break and take away some speed, because then the putt's going to roll softly down the hill. And so I can play around, and that's why I like the aim point process so much, because I can play around and add a little break, take away a little speed, and still hit a good putt, which is what I like to do on downhill putts. I always overread my downhill putts a bit, because typically the downhill putt 25, 30 feet, but my goal is to 2-putt.
Well, I don't remember now if it still is, but at one point the aim point reads downhill if you're at least 3 degrees of slope. You used to add a little bit.
Yeah, percentage-wise, because so, and that's another thing that people were kind of fuzzy about is why. A couple of things. Why does a downhill putt break more than an uphill putt, which they do, and we can prove it with mathematics, with science. Right, a downhill putt, because of the surface, you have to hit it softer, It's rolling downhill with gravity versus uphill against gravity. And when I hit something softer on a slope, it's rolling slower. It's more susceptible to breaking off the slope. So the slower the ball's moving, the more it's going to fall off the slope. So downhill putts typically, a downhill putt from 10 o'clock on a clock face to, the middle hands versus an uphill putt from 4 o'clock would have twice the break because of how soft I have to roll the ball downhill in order to control distance.
And you only are going to learn that by hitting a lot of putts like that and really pay attention to what you're doing, right?
Hitting a lot of putts, paying attention, and again, understanding. Like sometimes when we figure out breaks with aim point, people just look at me and they say, there's no way. I would never play that much break. And I said, well, if you did play that much break, what are you going to have to do? And so I had to hit it very softly so it takes the break. And I said, okay, so now we get two birds with one stone, if you will, right? Now I got controlling speed on a line that gives me the best opportunity to hold the putt.
Seems like the best way to do it, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah. So when you're getting people to work on distance and speed control, are there any drills that you like better than any others in terms of things that they do, or just hit a lot of putts and start learning, the differences? And then, for example, they're used to playing real fast greens and they end up on something real slow, in an event. Any specific things that they might do, or you might have them do more than others, the golfers?
Well, I think everybody's somewhat different, so I think we have to assess the individual and what the tendency is. To your first questions about controlling distance, to me, it's always length of stroke, backstroke, through stroke, and the speed of the stroke. I like putters that are a little more reckless than too careful. Too careful, too slow, too non-athletic, trying not to make mistakes, consequence making mistakes, right? So I like putting strokes a little faster versus a little slower. Mm-hmm. I like ratio of basically a 10-7 backstroke versus through stroke. So if I go 10 inches back, I go 7 inches through. So I use that on all of my putting lessons. So if I go 20 inches back, I take it times 0.7, that's 14 inches through. So take your backstroke length times 0.7, that's your through stroke length. If I go back 5 inches, I go through 3.5 inches. And I set up a 48-inch steel rule that I buy at Home Depot for $8. And then I go over to the electrical department and buy all the different color of electrical tape they have, which probably is 10 different colors. And then I'll set up my 48-inch rule with those little parameters based on 10-7. So I'll set up a 5-inch backstroke, a 10-inch backstroke, a 15-inch backstroke, a 20-inch backstroke, with the appropriate through stroke in the same color-coded tape. And so I have people practice that. And they'll say, well, how far should I roll the ball with a 10-inch backstroke and a 7-inch through stroke? And I said, well, it doesn't matter. It depends on the surface you're on, right?
Yeah.
So I said, just get on a flat surface on a green that you typically play the speed of, and you take that 10-7 ratio, 10 back, 7 through, and measure how far you roll the ball. Like if I took 5 balls, can I get those balls to touch each other when they're done rolling? So you have a tight little cluster. Because now if I can, I'm controlling length and speed of stroke. Now I'm on my way to understanding distance control.
And so if you're, on some new green, right, and you're some type of different tournament, taking that ruler out there is a great way to do that too, isn't it?
It is. I keep it, in my case, I keep it in the back of my car. I keep it in the trunk. And I take it to every putting lesson I ever do. I might not always use it, but it's there if I want it. And a lot of times in my aim point clinics, I'll do a little demonstration of how I can take it back 7, or back, if I go back 7, then times 7, that would be through 5. and then see all these little balls, they're touching each other, when they get done rolling, they're all in a little cluster. So I'm controlling length and speed of stroke because that's what controls distance, those two factors. Again, you have to catch it in the center of the club face, less toe side than heel side, but that to me is somewhat of a given. If you're not doing that, then we're obviously going to work on a little bit of stroke mechanics to get you there. But once we have you hitting the center of the putter, if you're doing that rather consistently, then it's just a matter of length and speed of stroke. It's and you don't all have to have the same stroke speed, but I want something that's not too careful. I want it more athletic.
What's the longest backstroke time you've ever seen? I mean, mine was I saw somebody that was like a second, and it was a pretty good player, right? I mean, you talk about super careful, right?
Right. I think people from different cultures have different backstroke times.
Yeah.
Right. I've worked with some lady tour players in the past who are on a 3-to-1 ratio. So their backstroke is 3 times as long as their through stroke. Now the problem they have is distance control at 40, 50 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the stroke has to be so big to accommodate that tempo.
Because the speed of the putter is just...
Well, their backstroke time is longer than my backstroke impact time.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So my ball's rolling and they're still completing their backstroke.
Wow.
Because I don't, and I'm not, I know a lot of people are, but I'm not necessarily a proponent of 2-to-1. So a lot of people are in that, 0.63 or 0.6 back, 0.3 through, perfect 2-to-1. 0.56 back, 0.28 through, perfect 2-to-1. My backstroke time is a little quicker. My downstroke time's a little slower. So I'm not a perfect 2-to-1. I tried for a number of years to be 2-to-1, and I never putted very well that way. But I would work with it constantly because that was like the rage. And I was trying to understand, and I'd get a lot of that's the natural order of things, or that's the timing, and I'm of the opinion that everybody has their own personal timing mechanism.
Yeah.
I don't think that you could give a Brandt Snedeker a long flowing Ben Crenshaw backstroke.
He wouldn't have made as much money as he's made the way he's doing it.
Brandt's very, he's a short pop style putter, a very fast tempo, maybe one of the fastest tempos on tour from what I've seen, but very efficient, very effective, won a lot of money playing that way, won a lot of tournaments playing that way, so I think everybody has their own personal rhythm and we got to identify that.
Now, when you're looking for rhythm, I mean, do you use metronome stuff sometimes? Just real simple things like that with them, or?
I don't use metronomes, but I could see where it would be helpful for a student who doesn't, I'm in the industry.
Yeah.
And, you as a club fitter have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment that I, as a teacher, would never buy because I could just go to my fitter and he's already paid for his equipment. I could just have him do my job.
Yeah.
Right. I think metronomes, if you have nothing else to do time, I think metronomes are a good solution. Early on in my career when I didn't have as much money as I have today and I was looking for a quick solution, I would use a metronome because I think some feedback is better than no feedback. I think a metronome, because you can get it on an app on your phone for free. And I think that having the feedback and know, but you have to have an idea of, those beats per minute on a metronome, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find where you're most effective. So yeah, I think that's one way. I have a Capto system, which is a multi-$1,000 system, with a license that I will use. My go-to quick one is the Blast. Been using that forever, ever since it was developed. I was probably one of the earliest proponents of Blast. I like it because it gives me a quick snapshot of what somebody's timing is, and and how it can vary, I don't even worry about how accurate something is as long as I'm getting consistent motion. So, the blast is very inexpensive, but I think for you get, I believe it's 11 parameters of data. That's a lot of parameters of data for a couple $100. And you charge it and put it in your bag. You turn it over. There's no switch, right? You just turn it upside down so it goes to sleep. So I think that's a really effective way to capture data, and it's inexpensive. So I like the blast as a quick go-to to do it. I like my steel rule that I buy at Home Depot and plug some electrical tape on. That's very efficient for me. I have something called the flat stick fire, which is a device that measures 5 different data points. The most important one to me is the putter head at impact. What is it doing regarding acceleration or deceleration rate? And that to me is the crux of putting. Is does that energy go into the stroke follow through, or is it going into the golf ball? And I want the energy to go into the golf ball. So this flat stick fire measures what the acceleration rate is or is not. If it's in a negative acceleration, or what would refer to as decelerating at impact.
That's the first time, looking on your website, that's the first time I've ever seen that device. And I checked out what it cost. It's, it's not cheap, but it helps you do your job.
Right. It's not cheap, but it's,
it works.
For what I do, it's necessary, right?
Yeah. Right.
I have never put anybody on that has not improved their putting performance.
Well, that's a pretty good measuring stick, right? For sure.
Right. That's why I look at my technology, right? So it cost me X amount of lessons to pay for it. I bought it not knowing if I was going to like it as much as I thought I was.
Yeah.
The person the individual who I bought it off, I said, look, I'll send it to you. You try it. If you don't like it, send it back. There won't be any charge. And I said, no. I said, that's not the way I do business, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, you put this gentleman put hundreds of thousands of dollars into this project and built these with the purpose of selling them myself. Just pay what you want for it. And, if it doesn't work the way I want it to, I'll give it to somebody that can use it and enjoy it the way I can't. And it was, probably one of the best investments I have ever made putting for my putting performance. I love this machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to make sure people see that when I post the post. Any just most fun kind of success stories about helping golfers with distance and speed control?
Yes, I have a junior that I work with, and he came to me. His dad came to me because he's very competitive. He has he's small, stature-wise, physically, but he competes against kids his own age who are physically bigger, and he hits the ball fairly well. Our woods and irons. Short game was decent, but not great. Putting was horrendous. And he came to me 2 years ago, and we started working on we started with aim point, putting, speed control, distance control, reading putts, understanding when to be aggressive on the greens, when not to be, to be more defensive. And then last season, and this gutted me more than it gutted him, because I felt so sorry for him. But he was in that drive, chip and putt contest.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so he went through locals and he got into regionals, and he was a really good long lag putter, but he didn't go through his entire process with his last putt, a 30-footer. And he had a 6-footer that he holed. So he got all 25 points, right? They give you points according to distance from, proximity from hole after putt stops rolling. So he holds his 6-footer. He holds his 15-footer.
Wow.
So he gets maximum points. He got like 50 points for those 2 putts. And then he needs his 30-footer. He just needs to stop it within 5 feet of the hole. But he didn't go through his entire reading process. And as a result, he came up outside his 5 feet to the hole. he got 1 point for the 30-footer, and he ended up winning and going to Augusta by 4 points.
Wow.
And it was just like, he worked so hard to get there. And we talked about it. And I said, what do you think happened? He said, oh, I know what happened. He said, I was excited about being there. I understood I just had to hit it like reasonably well. And he said, and I was, I knew I was winning because, they had the other 2 competitions. Putting was the last competition. And he says, I forgot to finish the process. I didn't read the putt the way I should have read the putt, because had I done that, I would have felt the slope at the end was a little uphill, so I would have given it more energy. Giving it more energy, obviously, would have given it more speed. More speed would let it roll further. And it was just like, to see him get that close, like he came within a couple feet of going to Augusta, And I said, what did we take from it? And he said, I got to be better at doing my process. He says, we always work on process, right? I kid him. I said, we call it process because I have English friends who call the process. and so I'm always emphasizing it. He says, it sounds so much better. It sounds more meaningful when it's a process versus a process. So he says, I'm going to make my process better. I said, good for you, right? So he took a lot from it. And then I've got some tour players that I worked with who more on the green reading side of it, have helped them with their speed control. I had one guy who he was right on the bubble of making FedEx a couple years back, and we got him over that hump, and he obviously made FedEx through better putting, and had good tournaments, and he ended up going to Atlanta, which was nice not only for he but for his caddy.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to work with somebody and see them do well with it, see it make a change.
Well, I made a bunch of notes as we were going along, but that 1 putt per round thing, I think, is just particularly for anybody that's competing, understanding the value of that in terms of getting better is just like huge, right?
Well, and at a professional level, that's 1 putt per round. People is like, it's only 1 stroke, but second place versus first place, tie, playoff at first versus winning. Missing a cut versus making a cut and then having a good weekend and, making $30,000 or $40,000. It's amazing how that one, and I'm not talking 1 putt per round. I'm talking 1 putt per tournament.
Right. Per tournament. Right.
Yeah. It's amazing. Oh. If you go over last week's earnings, for the tournament down in New Orleans with the men, and just make everybody 1 shot better.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The tie for third jumps into second, right?
Yeah.
And well, at that level, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Well, any final words on this sort of whole topic that you want to share with people about, things that you just suggest people do related to distance control and also green reading, of course. So,
well, it's just like, if you're not a very good putter, why is that? What is it about your putting that doesn't perform well? If this were a problem in business, if you have your own business or you work for a company and you had a problem, you'd sit down and you'd analyze the problem as, okay, what is it that we don't like? Why is this happening? What can we do to remedy the situation? And I try to get people to look at their golf games in the same way, because I teach a lot of people who are in business, in finance. I teach a number of doctors, a number of attorneys, And so I think you need to assess what it is about your putting performance that you don't like, and then get a realistic expectation of how we can change that. The thing that I believe that most people have no handle on is the ability to go out and work on their strokes and put the time in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People don't realize how much time and effort it takes. And then once you're out there doing it, it's just, I see people all the time when I'm giving my clinics or my lessons, they just drop a ball on the green, right? And they start putting aimlessly. There's no green reading. There's no lining up, any of that. So it's just like, develop a process for green reading, develop a process for, for hitting your putts. And based on that, you're going to have the ability to putt better. But it's a grind. It's, putting is a grind. So you have to go out there and you have to spend time doing it, right? You're not going to get better by hoping. Everybody wants a better performance, but the key is, are you going to do the work it takes to have a better performance?
I have a guy contacted me the other day and said, and I'm going to see him sometime soon. Probably putting is the first thing. It's just, and he said, I'd really like to, perform at a higher level, maybe senior tour, this and that. And one of the first things I think I'm going to say to him is, do you know how long these guys practice their putting every week to get better?
Yeah. It's just
time.
Yeah. I mean, this idea of playing professional golf is way overrated.
They are amazing people, aren't they?
Well, I currently have a friend who is on the Champions Tour, and I know what he's going through and what he went through to get there. And I don't know of too many people that would do what he's done and continues to do, and and what he's doing now to try to stay out there and end up, well enough off this year to see another year, and well enough, if that happens, next year to see another year. I mean, it's a grind.
Yeah,
that's a very pie in the sky idea.
Yeah,
but if you catch, like my friend, in tournaments at a local level with good players against other professionals, he's the kind of guy who could go out there and shoot 62, 63, 64, 65, right? And if you don't have that kind of ability, then find yourself some good amateur tournaments.
Yeah, and enjoy that.
These guys are these guys and these women are the best in the world at what they do.
Yeah. Well, John, I'm really glad we got to do this today.
I
think we had a lot of great things. I'll put a link to your website in the show notes. People should look at all the different resources you have there if they're looking for different tools for helping them improve their putting. But doggone it, I'm going to buy another 48-inch ruler and get a bunch of tape. I think it's a great addition to some of the things I get to do with people.
Just take your backstroke length times 0.7, and that will give you a through stroke and just kind of get a better stroke ratio.
Yep. Well, thanks. Hang on for a second. And I appreciate everything that you've done for me, too. You've done a few things for me. You helped out with some of the aim point boards and stuff for our team. And
my pleasure.
That was very kind.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Thanks, John, for sharing a lot of great information that golfers at all levels can use to improve their putting performance. As I noted during the interview, I ordered some colored tape to put on a 48-inch putting ruler that I know will be with me every time I do future putting lessons. To find out more about John Hobbins at the Greenside Golf Academy, click the link I provided in the show notes. I also provided a direct link to all of the training tools that John uses in his putting and full swing instruction. As I mentioned in the interview, once I saw the aim point visual aligner, I knew I had to have that to help golfers that I work with improve their green reading skills. My shout out today is for the Roane State Community College golf team that just played their district tournament this past week. As a team, they came very close, closer than ever in the past, to qualifying for the national tournament. And two of the golfers this year, Jacob Parton and Nick Doherty, qualified to play in the national tournament. Finally, these two and also Wyatt James were honored as part of the all-tournament team. Great work and improvement, guys. A reminder that there's a support Game Improvement Golf link in the show notes for this podcast. And if you can provide some support to help me improve my website and podcasting equipment, that would be greatly appreciated. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, as I often say, I'm working on a few new great interview opportunities to bring to you to help all of you play your best golf. Until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com